Why is Pete Evans being tormented in the nation of Australia over speaking the truth? Find out here today on Jimmy Rants. Click on that little box down in the corner. You can watch this on IGTV right here today on my Instagram page. So thanks for being here. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, you can engage live in the content, but you got to go follow me over on Instagram. I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LIVIN LOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, you can engage live, just like all these awesome people, Kelly and Joe and Kat and so many others coming in right now here today on Jimmy Rants. You can also watch me if you are a follower over on my Facebook page. So what's up, Facebook? Thank you guys for being here today. And then finally, we are on YouTube as well. So my YouTube livers, appreciate you guys being there today. The Jimmy Rants family all across social media. All right, so if you missed the live, it's okay. We put these up over on IGTV when I'm done here, so you can watch them on replay. We also throw them up on YouTube. Just type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. And then finally, you can watch them over at JimmyRants.com. And when you go to JimmyRants.com, if you like what we do here, we do have a Patreon page where you can donate and help us keep this show on the air. I will not put any ads on this show, I promise you. I want to keep it ad-free, but if you get value out of it, I would appreciate it if you could throw a few pennies my way. So click on that Patreon link while you are there. Okay, guys, I have a very interesting story for you here. And I wanted to do this one at 5 p.m. Eastern time because I wanted to make sure a lot of my Aussie friends, and I see a few of them have shown up. I see Jamie Hayes, my buddy over in Australia. In Brisbane is where Jamie lives. I have done 3 tours across Australia since 2012, I believe was the first one, Jamie. And I was able to go and visit and meet so many amazing people. If I didn't live in America, I would be living in Australia. Guys, it is a beautiful country. If you've never been to the nation of Australia, highly, highly recommend once all this COVID stuff passes. Figure out a way to get to Australia. Yes, it's a long flight to get there, but it is so worth it. When you go, spend at least a couple of weeks there. Don't just come for a couple of days. It won't be worth the flight if you come for a couple of days. But Australia is a really interesting country, right around 33, 35 million people. It's the same size as the United States. The middle of their country is all desert and deadly snakes. The outer skirts of it is where Sydney and Brisbane and Melbourne and Perth and Darwin and all the cities are. Beautiful, beautiful country, amazing people. I have had nothing but fond memories of my visits to Australia. And one of the things that I have noticed with Australia in my visits, and since I've come back to the States and observed what happens in Australia, is they have many of the same challenges that we do. That there's a lot of infighting about diet, and there's certain leaders that like to stir the pot. I recently gave you an update about Gary Fettke, who's also in Australia. He's a medical doctor who kind of used a low-carb, healthy fat approach with his patients to help them with their diabetes and their obesity. And how he went through a 4-year ordeal because 3 dietitians accused him of giving bad advice that was going to hurt his patients. And he was recently vindicated and they apologized to him, but the damage was done. Well, another one that is promoting real food, healthy fats, paleo, low carb, keto is this chef over there by the name of Pete Evans. And I'm going to show you his picture. He's a handsome chap. Or as they call him in Australia, he's a handsome bloke. Is he a handsome bloke? He's a pretty handsome bloke. Oh, Jamie corrected me on the population of Australia. It's only 25 million. Point being, there's significantly less than what we have here in the States, but the same size of a country. But thank you for that correction, Jamie. And so he is one of the coolest, nicest, level-headed people you will ever meet in your life. P is just a stand-up guy, and he's got the GQ looks, and so that makes him good for television. Well, guess what? He got to be on television, and kind of was a household name, and is a household name in Australia. He was on a show called My Kitchen Rules, and it was kind of a reality cooking show, and he was one of the main hosts of that show, and so therefore made a name for himself as a celebrity chef, kind of the Gordon Ramsay of Australia. Except he's a little more controversial than Gordon Ramsay is. And he's kind of been speaking out a lot ever since he went paleo and started getting healthy, trying to teach. So he often on his social media, which on his Facebook page, he has about 3 million people on his Facebook page. And then on Instagram, I think he's got like 250,000 followers. But he's always posting things to make you think. And here's the thing I love the most about Pete. He is unafraid to put things out there that push the envelope just enough for you to go, I wonder about that. He never, ever pushes anything on people. He always says, okay, here's something that has me thinking, you guys. What do you think? And then he kind of presents the information. There's people over in Australia that do not like that. And they come after him hard, you guys. By the way, I did get a chance to be on a TV show with Pete. He was filming in Austin, Texas when I was there for a conference. And he said, hey, you want to come do a keto episode with me? And so it was, as far as I know, the last time I checked, the Paleo Way is the name of it. It was on Netflix, and it was like episode 2 of the Paleo Way. Anyway, go look it up and you can see Jimmy Moore cooking with Pete Evans. That was really cool. But back to the story. Pete is being heavily blackballed right now in Australia because he's promoting concepts about health and concepts about truth that the mainstream just simply does not like. And the funny part, in Australia, he is either really loved by people or really hated by people. There's no lukewarmness when it comes to how people feel about Pete Evans. And again, it's funny because I know the man personally. I have spoken with him. He is one of the kindest, dearest people in the world. And so humble. And yet they think he's this evil guy. And so I have a news story that is out of you'rethenoise.com. And it was published May the 30th. Why mainstream media hates Pete Evans, the how and the why that they try to ruin him. So it kind of gives you the history here. I will tell you that on Aussie television last night, and of course it's already tomorrow in Australia, so all my Aussies watching this live, it's already Tuesday. So Sunday night in Australia, Pete was, they had interviewed him for 60 Minutes. So they have their own version of 60 Minutes in Australia. And so this reporter who Pete admires, is the only reason he agreed to it, came and interviewed Pete about all kinds of things, about the controversy, about why the mainstream doesn't like him. They had some comments about COVID-19 and some of the narratives that were being told about that one. Really fascinating. And today I posted over on my Instagram stories, I posted a 1-minute snippet if you want to go watch some of it, because Pete was smart. Pete said, okay, I know how TV works. You're going to edit things creatively to try to make me look bad. So he got the reporter to agree to let him film on the side. So the unedited version is up on YouTube right now. And again, I put the link over in my Instagram stories if you want to swipe up there. Otherwise, look up Pete Evans and maybe 60 Minutes. You should be able to find it if you kind of put in some keywords over on YouTube. But yeah, as far as I know, that got even more eyeballs of people looking at the stuff Pete's doing. So, if you just joined us late, there's this health troubadour over in Australia named Pete Evans. If you don't know who Pete is, I've had him on my podcast several times now. I've met him in person. I've done a cooking show with him. Wonderful, wonderful human being. But he's being blackballed right now in Australia. Why? Because he's speaking up for things about health. And he's done that for many years now. In fact, they call him Paleo Pete. And they mock him all the time for his Paleo Way and all the things that he does. And then lately, with all the COVID-19 stuff and some of the other kind of things happening behind the scenes with that, Pete has been asking questions and putting information out there that, again, the mainstream does not like. So I have an article here that kind of tells the story about how all this has gone down. Pete Evans, once a judge on My Kitchen Rules, is now the one being judged by the mainstream media. Again, this is in Australia. And is probably right now the most polarizing Australian, right next to Pauline Hanson. Forgive me, I'm an American. I have no idea who Pauline Hanson is, but I'm sure all of my Aussie friends will go, oh, Pauline is. So go ahead and tell me who Pauline is. I have no clue. So in this article, we're going to briefly outline Pete Evans's fame, and then his infamy, and then go into how narrative can ruin a high-profile character's credibility with ease. And this is the point I want to bring to my American friends, is they can do this in Australia, the media can, to a good man like Pete Evans. What are they doing here in America, and what could they do to someone? So pay close attention to the way they shaped who he is in the mainstream narrative. So this might sound like it's a puff piece for Pete, but it's more like a how-to in the game of manipulation, thought control, and how a narrative is driven without you even realizing it. Once you know the tools, you'll see it in every single article you read from now on. Maybe even this one. So let's dive in. It was only a few years ago Pete Evans was gracing our TV screens with no real judgment being cast in his direction, maybe apart from simply being on television. Let's be honest, if you're on the idiot box, you're fair game. So they're a little more, blunt in Australia about things, and it's cool. You know, I have no problem with bluntness. Here in America, we're a little too politically correct for everything, and we have to like dance around people's feelings. Yeah, that's out the window in Australia, and it's okay. It's kind of fun. And of course, they have the Aussie accent, so it sounds positive. They could be insulting you to your face, and all they have to do is say "mate" on the end, and it sounds cheerful. But that's kind of, yeah, if you're on TV, you're going to be fair game. So how did Pete go from this fun entertainer on television, an advocate of what can only be described as a common sense diet of no processed foods and eating naturally, a diet which we all agree is sensible, to someone who is now lauded as mentally unhealthy? This is no lie, you guys. There are doctors who are calling out, and you're going to hear about it in this article here in a second. They're calling out that they're fearful that something mentally wrong is wrong with Pete Evans, simply because he's speaking truth and putting information out there that goes against what the mainstream is saying. And I don't think anybody that's speaking ideas that run against the mainstream is crazy, but that's the insinuation they're trying to make here. And I'm one of those people here in America that, you know, when things don't seem right, I'm going to call it out as well. Am I crazy because of that? Is anyone who runs against the grain, all pun intended, in the diet world and promotes eating healthy fats and maybe a red meat only diet? Are we considered all crazy as well? If we lived in Australia, maybe. So here we have a man who has tapped into a zeitgeist that the mainstream media wants to keep under wraps, which when you begin to understand is actually for its own economic survival. And after all, this is the place where a narrative is set. A control platform designed to keep the public tightly bound and almost in that in-between of grown-up and child. This is the thing I didn't like when COVID-19 went down. The CEO of YouTube went on television and said, oh, if you say anything that goes against the World Health Organization and the official narrative that they put out, we are going to delete your video. And so if somebody wanted to give the benefits of vitamin C and how it could help in viruses, nope, that's not appropriate. The World Health Organization does not approve, which, by the way, the World Health Organization just today released a statement that said, oh, you know how we said the asymptomatic people of COVID-19 are the biggest way that this is spread? Yeah, it's highly unlikely that it's spread that way. What? Like, they've been pushing that. That's why we've had to stay indoors. All of us healthy people, we've had to stay indoors for so long because they said asymptomatic ones were the ones spreading this thing. Now they're coming out and saying, oh, it's very rare. That was their words. Very rare that it spread that way. And have you seen some of the studies about hydroxychloroquine, how they manipulated the data, and now they've retracted some of those studies that said it was harmful? Now they're saying, no, oops, we were wrong. So you got people like Pete Evans pointing out some of these abnormalities and saying, whoa, 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 and he's still being ostracized for it. And yet he's onto something. We need more people like Pete Evans speaking up and speaking out. We don't need silencing of voices simply because it goes against what is being stated in the mainstream. Like, I don't for the life of me understand that. If you're going to have a debate about issues, you want sides. You want to hear both sides. Do you want a one-sided debate? One-sided debate is dictatorialism. I don't want a dictator telling me what to know and what to believe. And yet right now, in the mainstream of media in Australia, apparently they think they are the dictators of what information should go out to my Aussie friends. And yeah, that's not the way a free society works. A free society lets all voices speak up, and then sensible people figure out what to believe. And that's all Pete is doing. So what Pete did is simply start asking questions, discussing his views on health, discussing views about freedom of speech, talking about censorship, the coronavirus, heavens forbid, and then he talked about 5G as well. And these are all related to health and related to things that were interesting to him. These are what we call around the office the naughty no-no topics. Kind of like, you say you never talk about politics and religion. These are the taboo topics. Now you can throw out, and race was another one, although we're talking about race now, but COVID-19 and various health things. You're not supposed to talk about certain things because it's taboo. They are not to be asked unless you've been given permission to talk about them. In fact, in order to ask them, you have to be one of the selected ones to talk about them. This is the thing that's pissing off the mainstream media in Australia right now about Pete Evans. He's not a part of the club. He's not supposed to be talking about some of these things. And yet, what is he doing? He's using his 3 million Facebook followers strong platform, his 250,000 Instagram followers, and he is sharing truth out the wazoo. And sharing information that's getting his followers to simply think in a different direction than the things they've been told. The thing that struck me the most about the interview with 60 Minutes that he did was when they were talking about COVID-19. And he said, I've been scouring the internet, looking desperately for even one health official or politician to come out and say, we need to be boosting our immune system as a means of fighting the COVID-19. And here's how you do it. Vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, selenium, magnesium. Nobody is saying a darn thing about how you boost your immune system naturally. It's all wait for the vaccine. It's all stay cooped up in your house. No, you're not allowed to hug. No, don't go out to your house without a mask on. And he's right. Here in America, I've yet to see anybody, other than the alternative health community, who's putting out these messages. Nobody in the mainstream, the selected ones like we were just talking about, are talking about that. And so we've got a guy willing to stand up. Oh, by the way, I said at the beginning, he used to be a judge on My Kitchen Rules, this reality show, cooking show in Australia. They fired him. They fired him over this. He's going to be okay because he's way, way famous and he's got other things. He also, by the way, is the guy that created, if you love that documentary, The Magic Pill, that was Pete Evans. He was the one that funded and created that. And he's got a follow-up film coming out here very soon that I'll be telling you about. What's it called? The Plant something. Somebody tell me what the name of it is. Jamie, tell me what the name of it is here. The plant pill or the pill plant. Anyway, somebody will tell me. Okay. P. Evans' mental health is now being called into question. And that's true to the template of an indirect hit piece under the banner of concern. In an article hilariously headlined, Top Australian Doctor Urges P. Evans to Go Seek Help If Needed After Sharing Virus Conspiracy. So because he has an alternative viewpoint that runs counter to what the mainstream narrative is, they think he's gone insane. Is it insane to want to speak truth? Is it insane to want people to have a different perspective? No. The insane thing is to have a bunch of mind-numb robots only listening to one voice. And yet in Australia, apparently they feel like the mainstream narrative is all people should be allowed to hear. And that's wrong. On Ben Fordham's 2GB radio program, Dr. Harry Nespolon said he was a little bit keen to make sure Pete is actually with his family or someone else during this COVID-19. Here on Instagram, I have seen Pete with his girls swimming in the ocean. They feign that they have this concern for him, and yet they are talking so bad about him publicly. If he really is in trouble, dare I say, he should make an appointment with his general practitioner, and I'm really quite serious about that, said this medical doctor. Typical of this condescending type of narrative, only to fake concern, he went on to say, it doesn't matter what he's done in the past. It really is important that we do take good care of him and that we reach out to him if there's a real problem. Do you think this guy actually cares about Pete Evans? We see this happen in politics here in America all the time. We see feigning of concern about not wearing a mask or wearing a mask and so many things. And it's so dripping with condensation and is it condescending? Would that be condensation? It's wet with condensation. That the condescending attitude just spills over. And like, how do you not notice that? P. Evans was even given a free but not invited health evaluation by the Australian Medical Association Vice President Dr. Chris Zappala. He said Evans spreading misinformation seems to defy logic. If he really is in trouble, dare I say, he should make that appointment right away. Oh, they would love it if he actually went in for a mental health evaluation. They would say, see, he even admits he's crazy. Of course, Pete responded, I send love and light to all the wonderful doctors and health workers out there that are helping people achieve long-term sustainable health. I have wonderful friends that are great integrative functional medicine doctors, so if I ever need any help, I know exactly who to go and see. Guys, Pete, as much as they vilify him, he never strikes back in ugliness. That is what they desperately want. They want to say, angry Paleo Pete fires back unnecessarily so at mainstream media. See, we knew he was mental all along. I mean, they're like literally baiting him to try to say something ugly. And if you know Pete Evans personally, you know that's not his style. That's not his heart. He is a kind, gentle spirit. And the man does not deserve the kind of treatment he gets. Now, he's got fame, but he's got infamy as well there in Australia. At the bottom of the article, we are left with a bunch of helpline phone numbers in order to reinforce their concern. So they're doing all these things to express they have concern. They don't really have concern for Pete Evans. They don't give a crap about him. They only want to embarrass him, and they want him to shut up. This is the thing. When someone begins speaking truth about health, truth about things that are going on in our culture, COVID-19, 5G, you name it, that runs against what the mainstream narrative is, there's going to be people wanting to silence them. That's what all this censorship has been about in the alternative health space. And it's going to continue. However, despite these lazy and predictable timed attacks on Pete Evans, what our experience tells us is that many great voices are misquoted intentionally in order to silence them, and they often go on to be drivers of a major positive change. So pay attention to this. As you are aware, many Australians share the same concern that Pete has on all the issues he talks about, and labeling him the way they do only serves to reinforce all the previously held beliefs that regular everyday Australians already have. The more that the mainstream media attacks people like Pete Evans, the more they feel attacked. Remember, he's got 3 million followers of the 26, I believe is what Jamie said, 26 million people in Australia. 3 million follow Pete Evans. That is a sizable portion of the population. And he's got 250,000 followers here. And that's just people that like directly follow him. How many people follow and believe, but they don't want to like go follow him out of fear that somebody would see they follow Pete Evans, and they come after them. So he's probably got a whole lot more people that support him in Australia than just the 3 million on Facebook. But these people that follow him, they feel attacked too. So they place Pete in an even more influential and powerful position. This is the ironic thing. The more they try to bring him down, the more power they give him. And we kind of see that here in America with various people in positions of power. The more those people get ostracized and criticized and ridiculed and called names, the more their supporters seem to latch onto them even stronger. And this is something the mainstream media in Australia has not figured out yet, is the more they attack someone like Pete Evans, the more his followers go, okay, yeah, we believe him even more now. This is what your regular news, television, and radio outlets are actually afraid of. Pete taking a chunk of their viewers, dragging them over to social media, and then switching off all those mainstream channels completely. Controlling the narrative about vaccines, for example, what is acceptable science and what isn't. Part of the problem with mainstream media is that McDonald's is one of their biggest clients. Fast food outlets account for a large proportion, this is in Australia, of the income that media generates there. Just on that alone, it's easy to understand why they want to keep him quiet. We see that here in America. A lot of pharmaceutical companies. You ever watch TV commercials on mainstream television in America? It's a lot of pharmaceutical companies. It's a lot of food companies. So if you have someone speaking out about pharmaceutical companies and about food, big food, junk food, crappy garbage as I call it, they're going to come after you. And that's exactly what they're doing in Australia to Pete Evans. But people keep following him, faithfully following him. Even if he goes down a rabbit hole that not everybody necessarily believes in, they're going to want to hear what he has to say, and at the very least, make you think. So, have we lost the art of listening? Are we also morally righteous to think that we, along with the government, know how we should best be living our lives? At the time of this writing, Pete Evans' Facebook page, they say here, has nearly 1.5 million followers. On the TV show, the 60 Minutes show, he talked about it being 3 million. So has he picked up that many followers since then? Anyway. So just with the 1.5 million followers, that's about 6% of the population of Australia. And it resonates with them. This is the amazing thing, you guys. He's got quite a powerful voice in Australia. And that is scaring the bejeebies out of the mainstream media. Because if they're listening to Pete Evans and Pete saying things that run counter to what the mainstream narrative is, they're fearful. They don't want people to hear the truth. And let me remind you, Australia is the same place where a reporter who was talking about cholesterol and saturated fat being healthy, Dr. Marianne Damasi, this happened several years ago now, but she also got blackballed because she was running against the grain when it comes to sharing information. So Pete's just the latest example, and Pete's a little more Teflon than Gary Fettke was. Gary Fettke's family got run through the mud for 4 years. Dr. Marianne Damasi, same thing. She used to be a very famous TV personality and started getting interested in kind of the keto, low-carb, real food message and how we've been lied to about fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol. And she was doing news stories. They actually put out a story about cholesterol, and they made her retract it. And she was like, but what's wrong with it? There's nothing wrong with it. And so she actually got fired over that. And then you've got a dietitian there named Jennifer Elliott, who was also teaching about low-carb, high-fat diets. And she actually got her dietetics license stripped from her. That, again, all of these things happened, years ago, 4, 5, 6 years ago. But they come after you if you run against the grain. And I'm glad there's people like Pete Evans out there being fearless. Because we need fearless people who are not afraid to lose their TV gig, just like he did. And again, if you joined us late, Pete Evans lost his TV gig on a very famous show there called My Kitchen Rules. All because he was willing to speak up on behalf of truth. And it runs against the mainstream narrative. So, the mainstream media, in this article I'm reading from, is the biggest bully on the planet. They misrepresent and lie to defame anyone that is outside of their discredited narratives. Then they organize to get you kicked off of all media platforms so you have no right of reply to defend yourself when they defame you. When they make up lies about you, their story sticks, and that becomes your existence in the public sphere. I'm not as famous as Pete Evans, not even close, but I can tell you just the little bit of fame that I have, that is so true. If you try to look up something about me, you're going to see a narrative that I am a butter guzzling keto advocate, and that's why I stay fat. And they will show you a meme that shows that I eat sticks upon sticks upon sticks of butter in my diet, but that's the narrative that got put out there. And so people start to believe the narratives, not going to the source. Those of you that watch Jimmy Rants all the time, you know that's preposterous. But people who only hear about me based on what other people say about me and have a narrative about me, that's what becomes their reality about me. The same with Pete Evans. There's a lot of people in Australia that they don't actually go follow Pete. They just read the mainstream narrative about Pete, and that's what sticks in their head. And again, it's a shame that a good man, kind man like Pete Evans has to have his good name run through the mud, all at the altar of, well, you're not a part of our club, so you need to shut your mouth. They don't know Pete too well. He doesn't know how to shut his mouth because he feels like he has a bigger mission. than any TV show and any fame that he happens to have. All of a sudden, endless people see you in the street and they repeat the dehumanization label that they got from their television, and that's their justification to assault you. And you deserve it because you are now that label, even though you never identified as that. I was watching on YouTube the other day, it came out about 3 weeks ago, they did a hit piece on Pete, and it was all mocking him for these so-called crazy beliefs he has. And you can just hear the condensation in the reporting. It's about a 3-minute story. If you go look it up on YouTube, type in Pete Evans' name and you'll find it. But they say some ugly, ugly, ugly things about him, and it's all snarky. And I'm thinking, what in the world is someone who's saying eat real food, and why don't we ask questions about things going on in the world? What is his great sin? What did he do to deserve that? And that's just a reality. And I see a lot of my Aussie friends are popping on here. Hey, Leah, Pete Evans is like the boogeyman in Australia. And this is one of the kindest men you'll ever meet. And yet in Australia, you have people that really, really, really love him and people that really, really, really hate him. And when you're a polarizing figure like that, you have to just stay who you are. And I'm proud of Pete. I think what he goes through would have given me like 10,000 gray hairs by now. And he just keeps smiling through it all. And he keeps being who he is and never compromising who he is. Because the moment you compromise is the moment that they have won. And he refuses to let them win. Pete is a chef, which is a form of food expert, but has no right to talk about nutrition and health when nutrition is not a controlled substance, scheduled poison that anyone has jurisdiction over. But Bill Gates, who is not a doctor or a virologist, is the leading expert on vaccines right now, set to make billions upon billions of dollars off of that. The head of the unelected World Health Organization isn't even a medical doctor. And the U.S. just terminated their authority because they are so corrupt and full of it. These are the same control freaks that voted to declare water does not hydrate because only medicines can have a monopoly of claim for that kind of effect on the body. And because water is not a medicine, you can't make a claim on it. And I would add, you can't make profit off of it. Isn't it a shame like everything comes back to money and power? And that's what these things being said about Pete Evans is all about. The people making money want to keep making money, and the things Pete's saying might jeopardize some of that money. And the people that have the power to control the narrative, they want to keep that control. And if Pete Evans says something that runs counter to their narrative, they feel like their control, their power is being taken away from them. And this is so relevant, not just in Australia with Pete Evans, but around the world. These are the same control freaks that voted to declare water does not hydrate. I just said that. Those who attacked Pete Evans are now a discredited joke at this point. They even admit that is why his numbers keep growing and mainstream media are losing to people like him. So this is funny. He was just on mainstream media Sunday night. He was on 60 Minutes in Australia. And they don't realize they just increased his profile even more. And Pete's sitting back there going, okay, I got a new documentary coming out. Leah, by the way, what's the name of Pete's new documentary, The Plant Something? And I couldn't remember. Jamie said he doesn't know, but tell me what the name of it is, Leah, if you're still here, because I would love to get the name of his documentary. It's a follow-up to The Magic Pill. I think it's called The Plant Pill, but help me out if that's what it's called, The Plant Pill. But The Magic Pill was the one everybody knows, the big keto documentary film that came out a couple years ago. So the worst part of how Pete is being treated by the media is gross medical negligence in violation of the Goldwater rules. So they have the Goldwater rule here. It's Section 7 in the American Psychiatric Association's Principles of Medical Ethics. It states, it is unethical for psychiatrists to give a professional opinion about public figures who they have never examined in person and from whom they have not obtained consent to discuss their mental health in a public statement. It's named after the former U.S. Senator and presidential candidate Barry Goldwater, who apparently was called out for his mental health. So they've broken the Goldwater rule, diagnosing him from afar, Pete Evans from afar, like media medical experts do when they claim he's mentally ill, based on his misrepresentations in the lying media. The danger of this disgusting totalitarian behavior far exceeds any danger that Pete Evans is putting out there, letting you know that some ingredients in sunscreen are not that good for you. So, Pete is a good guy. Pete does not deserve all this scorn that he's getting in the country of Australia right now. And I think we, as good people who are thinkers, we need to stand up for what's right. And if someone like that can be targeted and tarnished and try to be brought down, and we don't stand up for somebody like that when they're obviously doing good work and obviously putting out good messages, who are they coming after next? And this is the thing that I'm going to harp on again and again. Whenever you see a wrong, you need to be a voice that stands up on behalf of that wrong to make it right. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us. That's just happening in Australia. How is that happening here in America? How is that happening in the UK? How is that happening in any other part of the world? It's happening all the time. But I applaud Pete Evans. I've been watching him from afar. I've been sending comments on a lot of his posts here on Instagram. Go and follow him, Chef Pete Evans, here on Instagram, and you can look him up, Pete Evans, on Facebook as well, and follow him and see what he's writing about and see if you think he's as crazy as the mainstream media thinks he is in Australia. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. We're going to come here to Instagram first, then over to my Facebook page, and then finally to my YouTube channel. So welcome in, welcome in. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. See what you have to say about Pete. Kat says, that's logical about asymptomatic people. She's going back to the WHO, World Health Organization, now saying asymptomatic people are not the primary reason COVID-19 is spreading. They just released that statement today. If you spread through droplets, mostly when cough and sneeze, you don't cough and sneeze when you're asymptomatic. Oh, that's cool. That's true. People don't think about that, although you can dry cough even if you're not sick, but I get your point. Even my husband was talking why nobody's talking about the immune system, and he's a nobody in the world of medicine. Hey, don't talk about your husband being a nobody. I know what you meant. Susie says, Pete gets such a bad rap here in Australia for speaking up and talking the truth. He does, and he has for years. Like, I remember when I first started going to Australia, Pete was already a big celebrity there, and people were like, oh, Pete Evans, he's like great in the paleo world and real food movement, but the media hates him. And I'm going, what do they hate about a chef? Like, sorry, I used not enough carbs in my recipe. Like, well, what were they hating him for? And then I think probably what happened was he said one thing that was a little controversial, and then that caused the ire of the mainstream media. So then every time he said something after that, they blew it up into this big thing. What was that thing, that little red, it was like a red light type of thing that he was selling, and they were talking about it being $15,000, and every time he sold one, he made blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they're always getting on him about something. So you're right, Susie. Gary says, it's insane to listen to some people that want to be popular. That's true. The Magic Plant. Thank you, Susie. I knew somebody would know the name of that film, The Magic Plant. So yeah, you had The Magic Pill, which was really amazing if you've never seen The Magic Pill. Very keto-friendly type of documentary. And my favorite part was the little girl who had major like temper tantrums and everything, and they switched her over to real whole foods, and she just became this sweetheart darling of a girl. It was awesome. And that's the same film where the guy had the bad teeth from drinking Mountain Dews. It's the same film where Lear Keith was talking about you can't have plants until you have dead animals. So many good nuggets of truth in there. Go watch The Magic Pill. But yes, The Magic Plant. Thank you for that. Paola says I need to watch that one. Yes, you do. If you've not seen The Magic Pill, it's definitely an incredible film. So thank you, Instagram. Let me pop over here now to my Facebook page where I know I have a few of my Aussie friends over here, including Jamie. I saw Jamie writing to me a whole lot while I was on here, so let's see if I can get to a few of your comments. I was just reading his information on his Instagram post yesterday, says Debbie. Yeah, he's an interesting read. And the thing I love the best about Pete, he does not push any particular view. People are all the time in the comment section, well, Pete, this is all well and good. You kind of share this info, but what do you think? And Pete's like, this isn't about what I believe. I'm just sharing information so that then you can have it to think differently than what the mainstream media is trying to tell you. And I love that approach. I mean, how easy would it be for him to say, okay, here's the information. Here's what Pete Evans believes. He never does that. He merely lets the information speak for itself and then lets you, the reader, determine what you believe and what you don't believe. She's an independent politician who has a reputation for raising non-PC issues that many in the silent majority feel. She's on the rise again. Pauline Hanson. Okay. I was wondering, who's he describing? So yes, Aussies know who Pauline Hanson is. The rest of the world, we don't have a clue. So thank you, Jamie. Jamie also says freedom of speech is under threat, but the question is who exactly is threatened and why exactly? And this is the thing that Pete's pointing out is I'm just sharing information. Who would be threatened by information? Not many of Pete's critics look as abundantly healthy as he does. That's true. He is a very healthy guy. So it does tell you, okay, who's the one really telling the truth here? The same forces exist in order to protect the status quo, and that's probably true too. The status quo keeps the flow of money and power going. I recall attending a seminar at Sydney University where Pete was a speaker, but I did not know what he looked like. I sat in an empty seat in the front row, and the guy sitting next to me said, "G'day, my name's Pete." Very nice guy. Yeah, he is an extremely nice guy. The whitest teeth you've ever seen of a man. And just super, 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 super nice guy. I can't gush on him enough. And when I was recording that television show with him when he was in Austin, Texas, that was a cool experience because he has on camera like moxie, like he knows how to speak on camera, obviously from his years of media experience, but then he knew like the angles that he wanted, and he knew exactly how to keep the food going even when they weren't rolling, and he's okay, come get a close-up. He was like executive producing the show while he was the host of the show as well. So it was really cool to watch a professional chef, television chef, up close and personal, kind of doing his thing. Again, if you didn't see it, I think it's still on Netflix. The Paleo Way is the name of the TV show, and I think I was in episode 2 of The Paleo Way. About 10, 15 minutes into the show, he did a segment about keto with me. It was many years ago we recorded. It was funny, we recorded like 6 or so years ago, and it only came out like 2 years ago. That tells you how television production takes time to get through the channels like that, but it was a really cool experience. Thank you, Facebook. Let me pop over now to my YouTube channel, see what you guys have to say. Shirley says, I never heard of him before, but he sounds like the kind of person I would like. I just hopped over there to follow him. Yeah, Pete is a really cool guy. He's done a little bit of American television, but he's not nearly like Gordon Ramsay American television. I think he would be amazing on like the Food Network here in America, because he has such an exuberance. Like he's got one of those smiles that when he smiles, you smile, because it's just, you can tell he's a happy guy. You can tell he's content in his heart because he knows who he is. And those people who, when you know thyself, you can always see those people that are at peace. And Pete Evans is one of those people. All right, let me come back over here to my Instagram, see if there's any final comments, and I don't see any. All right, so those of you who did not know about Pete Evans, hopefully today you learned a little something. And right now, he's probably public enemy number one of the mainstream media over in Australia. And of course, you might be in America and go, well, what do I care what's happening in Australia? Guys, if they can do this in the nation of Australia, what would stop them from doing it here? For my Canadian friends, what would stop them from doing this to Dr. Jason Fung? What would stop them here in America from doing it to Dr. Adam Nally or Dr. Eric Westman? What would stop them from anybody, or in the carnivore community, Dr. Paul Saladino? They tried to railroad him a few months back when he was on the doctor's show, and they set him up. What would stop these same tactics from being used? And so if we call it out, then you can recognize it when it starts happening. And I would say this is your opportunity to double down on all those people that you admire the most. Who are those people that you follow in the health space that you feel like are telling you the truth? And don't just tell you what you want to hear. Sometimes they share things that go off the beaten path a little bit that maybe you had not thought about before. We need people like Pete Evans who push the envelope, make you think outside of your paradigm so that you become better and you expand your knowledge. If all we ever hear is the same things we already know, how do you ever learn? So I'm grateful for Pete Evans and all the other people in the world that put out information that make you think and make you learn. And we need to be following those people. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, you can engage live in the content. You got to go follow me right here. Instagram is where we have the fun begin. At Living Low Carb Man is my username, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you are there, engage live in the content. We usually go live Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Sometimes we throw in these 5 p.m. Eastern like I did here today, and then sometimes on the weekends, but always at 11 a.m. Eastern time here on Jimmy Rants on Instagram. If you missed there, we also go live over on my Facebook page, so thank you guys for being here, as well as my YouTube live stream. We go live there over there as well. Marnie says, Dr. Cyrus's truth is hard to take sometimes, but it always works when you apply it. Yeah, Robert Cyrus, who I've talked about before, I had never heard of him before till I shared a stage with him in South Africa, Cape Town, South Africa in 2015. I didn't know who he was, and they asked me to introduce him. I'm like, how do I introduce somebody I don't know? And so coming up next, we have this guy that I have no idea who he is, and maybe you don't either, but Dr. Robert Cyrus. And he came on the stage, and I went to bed because I was jet lagged. And he was so gracious to me later. Oh, that was the perfect intro because nobody did know who I was. They know who he is now, so that's true. So, all right, so if you missed the live, watch it on replay. We're right here on IGTV, so go check it out. You can also watch the replay over on YouTube. Just type in the keyword Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. Finally, we have this show at JimmyRants.com, and while you're there, we do have a Patreon page if you want to support this. I don't do any advertising here, but I definitely appreciate all of my viewers. So thank you for watching. Go over to JimmyRants.com and support the show that way. All right, guys, that's it for now. Until next time, we'll see you then. All right.